Hey Jan, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I went because I don't have electricity right now. So
Hmm.
I went over a friend's house to watch a movie, and maybe an hour in, I was sneezing and care. I was like, "Do you have a cat?" He was like, "Yes, I have a cat." I'm allergic to cats,
Yes.
so I'm still going through that. I just Googled it to see how long is this gonna last. It said 2 to 3 days.
Oh, well,
I
yeah,
was like, ugh.
and asthmatics really shouldn't be around cats anyway.
Well, it always, any little thing like a cold or anything triggers my asthma, which I hate. That's why, I really like wearing a mask and all that good stuff.
Right.
So I'm going to try not to sniffle and all those things that you do when you are dealing with allergies. Um,
Did you take a
but
Benadryl?
I just did just now because you don't remember everything that you need to do in the moment. You're like, oh, I should do this a day later.
Right.
So I just did. I prefer to do those at night so I can go to bed,
Right.
but we'll see what happens today. Anyway, do you want to talk about our name changes?
Well, yeah. So today I'm kind of featuring that I love a Black woman. I just kind of using our platform here to make statements about things that are important to me.
Okay. Anything else?
Should there be something else?
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's just, to speak on it a little bit more, I think that, what it represents is that I'm proud to be who I am,
Okay.
with all the challenges that we have as Black women. Um, being underpaid, being scrutinized, and just, the racism, the microaggressions. Despite all that, I'm very proud to be a Black woman.
Okay. And I should probably say something about that. Like I didn't figure out how to do confetti yet. But but I agree with everything you're saying. I'm not a black woman, of course, but I know a whole bunch of them.
Right.
I was raised in a house. I always say I was raised in a house full of women, which was, you and mine. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So I am using the hashtag we need black teachers. I actually have a sweatshirt that I was going to put on, but it's hot in here. And again, I don't have electricity, which means I don't have air.
Right.
So I didn't put on my hoodie with that same hashtag. But this comes from the Center for Black Educator Development. And their goal is to get more Black teachers into the classroom. Right now, we about 7% of all teachers in the United States are Black. About 2% of all teachers in the United States are Black men. So I know growing up in Detroit, all my teachers were Black. Most of my teachers were Black. Um,
Most, yeah.
I had very few teachers who were not Black. Whereas most of the country, the converse is true.
Right.
They rarely, if any, time have a teacher that is Black. So, we do need more Black teachers. I wear that sweatshirt a lot, airports when I'm traveling. I always
Hmm.
expect someone to say, that's racist, because, that's what we do now. But I always, in my head, I'm prepared to say, well, do you want to teach Black students? Someone's got to teach Black students. Someone's got to love to teach Black students.
Right.
So hence we need more Black teachers. And I want to preface it by saying we need more good Black teachers. So we want Black teachers who also want to love and teach black
Yeah, they have a
students.
passion for doing what you're
Yeah,
doing. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So now that we got that out the way, I have a question.
Yes.
Uh, I forgot to start my timer, but I have a question. And my question is this. You saw the first episode of our podcast. What did you think?
I honestly I thought it was okay. I think that there are a lot of things to us, our banter, our sibling banter that's quite comical. I don't know if that came across like I was hoping for it to, but I mean, all in all, I thought we had some good talking points, if you want to call them that. Like, I'm like it was some good points that I really enjoyed a lot. I'm sure as we continue on, doing this, it's going to get a lot better, and I'll feel more comfortable as well too. But um, it was okay. I didn't hate it.
Did you did you expect to hate it or love it or just
I
being
I
okay
I
is good?
I thought that I was going to just love it, love it. No, I didn't expect to hate it, but you know, I mean, it's a project I think that we're both kind of committed to. So, things take time. So that's
Okay. I liked it actually.
oh, good.
I mean there were some, spots that I think there was some dead space,
Yeah,
but
yeah, but
it's visual. We're doing a visual
that's correct.
podcast here versus something that is just audio. So in that visualness, I could see our faces, and we say a lot with our face.
This is true.
So I don't play poker, which all my friends know because everything I feel and think shows on my face.
Hmm.
So that being said, I like that part.
Right,
Was that, oh, okay, there was dead space there, but you can read into what was going on there.
right.
So that being said, let's start talking about today. So what we're talking about today is really what something we kind of started talking about last week was, we have these adult children and these aging parents, and how does all this work? Before we start there, I do you get the AARP magazine?
I do.
So
Shirley Ralph was on the cover this
yeah, so I
time.
was reading it today, and it was a really good article about, your kids are gone, so now what do you do? And I don't know about you, but I haven't adjusted to being an empty nester very well. So, I had children in my 30s, so my child just left. Maybe I'm not going to count the college years. I mean, a lot of people count when they turn 18 and they go off to college because they come back, right? They come back
Right,
like 3 or 4 times a year. So I'm going to count from the end of college on. So it's been about a year, and there's no more nothings to do. There's no more sports activities to take them to, no more recitals to take them to. So your life doesn't revolve around the children anymore. And, I tried to prepare for it. Hence, in our last episode, I talked about asking people what did they do for fun.
right,
And they didn't have real answers that I thought people who did not have kids or kids have been gone for 10 years might have. Um, so I'm still adjusting. I thought I'd travel more. I thought I'd, hang out in the streets more. But none of those things have happened. So I'm still kind of adjusting to what this might look like with no children at home. I know you have a different scenario. in
Yeah, because
that.
she came back.
Well, talk about that then.
So yeah, I mean, she was gone, moved out. We did a whole scenario of planning and helping and assisting her to move out and be, on her own, doing her own thing. And then she came back, and partially it was because received the diagnosis of cancer. She came back initially to kind of help out, but she's still here. And so, I mean, but the difference for me, I don't consider myself an empty nester because she is still here. Even though she does have her own life per se, but I'm still responsible for everything, like everything, that's going, like she's is not my roommate. This is my child.
So she doesn't put in any dollars. Does she wash the dishes, clean
Well,
up?
yeah, we just had that big conversation about, like, having, having to do those kinds of things without me having to ask. Like, I don't want to have to ask you, like, you're not my roommate, but I'm also not your maid, So, I mean, we definitely, I guess I feel like I want, you know, my child to have the best foundation whatsoever. And so I'm not totally opposed to her being here until she can do that. But at the same time, you know, I can't be the only one carrying the load. Like,
Mm.
your job didn't end just because you went away to college and, became an adult and now you're back. Um, that's just kind of where I am. So yeah, she's got to pitch in, which she's aware of.
How does how does and also your situation is different because I don't live in the same city with our parents.
That is true.
So I just I can do. Remember, It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart and some lady.
This is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, and Jimmy Stewart never got to go do anything, but his
He
brother
never
got
got
to
to
go
do,
do all
yes,
these
his
things.
brother got to, every time he would plan, his goal was to move, like he wanted to get as far away from Pottersville as possible, but that just never happened. Like everything, his dad died, his brother went away to the army,
Mm-hmm.
then his brother came back, but then got married and,
Mm-hmm.
got this. So yeah, it was a whole bunch of stuff. And so yeah, you start to reflect on your life, like, okay, I didn't get a chance to do all the stuff that I wanted to do.
So
Um,
in our situation, I look at you as Jimmy Stewart,
I
and I
am.
get to be the brother
I am.
who went
I
away.
am. I am. I mean, I did have the benefit of going away for a minute, which I, thoroughly enjoyed, but situations brought me back here, and here I have been. And I do try to, I mean, a lot of times I say, okay, why am I here? But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I've had a great career, raised my daughter, was able to get her to school and back. And, so there are some pluses to it. I'm here with, family and friends. So it's not all bad. It's just not what I intended.
So with me, even raising children or them gone now, I didn't have family here.
Right.
So it's a very different raising
Right.
children when you're in an environment by yourself. I had some really good friends who were able to do some great things and help me out in certain ways, but it's still not family, you know what I
No,
mean?
right.
So, and ironically, just going back to that article in AARP, you know, ironically, I'm in a city that's not my number one choice to live in.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and my children don't live here. They've settled in other places and don't plan on coming back. But one of the things in that article stated, one of the parents wants to downsize, as do I. And but the thing is, well, what if the children do come back? And I look at your situation. What if the child needs to come back for some reason? I need to have a
Right.
place for them to be. Or do I? Is that my responsibility anymore? Is that my responsibility to have a place for them just in case they may need it?
Well, and I think that that's the changing times. We talked a little bit, I think, last week about like the, generational changes and what that looks like. I don't know that the generation before us really cared. I mean, in the same way that we do. I'm not going to say they didn't care at all, but they weren't really concerned so much about like I need to keep my house in case my kids come back,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I need to keep a place. And, like their thing is like, you're out, you're done, go live your life, be free.
yeah,
And, we think, not everybody, but most of us in this generation think a little bit differently. Like, we're helping them to, I guess, transition hopefully a lot smoother than our transition was.
yeah, yeah. And it's difficult because times are different. Everything's much more expensive than they were
It
before.
absolutely.
So having just a head start, a leg up, something is helpful for if you can do that for your children. It's helpful to get them started. And I guess
Right.
once they get started, I feel that my children have gotten started. Like, okay, here's what I did. One thing I wanted to make sure was that they didn't have student loans. So if they didn't have student loans, that means somebody has to pay, right? So I
Right.
wanted to make sure that was a thing. And I wanted to make sure that they were able to start their life, with property. So we did those
Hmm.
things. Do I have further obligation to them? Is, something I go back and forth with because, again, I don't have electricity. Houses, something always goes wrong in a house. And do
Right.
I really feel like climbing on top of the roof or rolling in the crawl space at 60 years old? Is that something I
Right.
really want to do? So I do think about that. I think about that a lot, actually.
I
Um,
think that oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that everybody, like we all have to decide for ourselves, like what that thing is. Because when I look at you and what you've done with your children, which, we're working to do something similar, it's like once you have your own property, do I need to, you know, I mean, at
Right.
that point, like that's to me is your foundation. And what you do, at that point, yes, mom is always going to be here to help, to guide you, to help you through those new things that will come along, because eventually there'll be children or there'll be marriages and children and, you know, new careers and that kind of stuff. And so that's when I'll be able to, you know, be part of like your next phase. But financially, which that will always be there, but not the same degree, I think.
Well, so we mentioned our parents briefly. Financially, so let's start with financially when I'm talking about parents. I
Hmm.
know there's a thing uh, when your parents get older, they become more dependent on their children or more childlike or whatever that, or
Right.
however that story goes.
Hmm.
But financially, I think, when I graduated from college, I got $1,000. I remember that. And that was for me to go. Like, here's your money. Go. I think I spent it in like a week. I don't know how long it took me to spend that, but I found somewhere to live and something like that.
Hmm.
But it was something. It was, the other people didn't get that when they
Right.
graduated.
Hmm.
So I in my head, I'm doing more than I received. And I guess that's, how it's supposed to go. You should do what you can do. But it's a daunting task when you're still, trying to, struggle yourself. I mean, I still work. I'm not retired. I'm not independently wealthy or anything of that nature. So
Right.
all and things go wrong. How
Hmm.
my children will call, "Hey, my car broke down." Okay, mine too. I need new tires. Me too. So what do you do with that? What's my
So, I mean, I think
obligation?
that's, yeah. Again, I think it's what you allow for it to be, but at the same time, we do want them to become independent. Like we want our assistants to be more, well, for me, we want our assistants to be more guidance than actually doing, the work, because eventually they're going to be somebody's parent.
Mhm. Or not,
Or they're going to
maybe
be,
not. Who knows?
or somebody's spouse, or whatever their situation may be. Like eventually you're going to have to be the one to, talk about whatever you need yourself. I just had a situation where, my daughter just, she has this conversation she needs to have, and she's like, "Well, can you have it?" Because there's a person that mutually we both know. I'm like, "No, because it's not my business." Like this is your business. We can, I can coach you through it. We can talk about it, we role play it out or whatever helps you to feel comfortable. But one thing I can't do is have that conversation. And so for me, I think that's probably one of the biggest transitions. Um, the children, or at least, for me, having those social skills. Like there's something to be said for our parents just like saying, "Okay, I'm done, figure it out."
Mhm.
There's, I do think that there has to be some type of balance there, because we don't want to be, full on the other way doing everything, and now they can't handle anything. Because what happens, if you really get sick? you
Yeah.
know you know do they even know how to pull their troops, their supports together when it's not going to be you? So, I guess that's kind of where I am, with the transition of a child, in adulthood, moving on and establishing her own life. Like there, at some point, I do have to begin to pull out more so that their decisions can be made. And some of the stuff is, you know, I remember, being pregnant. I had never been pregnant before. Well, going through that space. So I did rely, on our mother a lot, for that time. And that was fine. But, just to have her come and, and take care of the baby, like, no, that's not going to happen. And so I do
Mhm.
think that that's where we have to figure out, moving forward, okay, how much of this are we going to do and how much are we going to help guide them through?
So the next part is about, so we have these parents now who can't do anything. So I saw this Instagram reel, and the guy was saying, "Hey, I went over to my mother's house and I had to set up her iPhone, and then went over to my aunt's house and did her GPS in the car." And they were like, "See, you should have gone to college. You could be an engineer." And I get what he's saying. Like, this is stuff everybody does. Everybody should know how to do. Oh, and I've heard the, because I wasn't there. I've heard our parents go through similar things. Like, can you fix this for me? Can you? How does that work with you when you already are dealing with your own health,
Mhm.
your career, and your adult child?
It's a lot. I mean, I think that anybody that's in any similar situation, like I mean, of course, I'm very appreciative to, my parents for everything that they've ever done and probably will, do for me. But at the same time, like I got stuff going on, like I can't just stop and, talk to you, or I can't take you to X, Y, and Z because I got to be at the job. And maybe if I was in a position where I just was, I was at a 9 to 5 kind of situation, but on my job, I'm responsible for people, I'm responsible for programs, I have responsibilities as well. And it's a lot to try to balance. Um, I think the main thing is, you know, I don't know that they necessarily understand how much they're asking.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, you were talking about the internet and the GPS. I know, in particular, with our father, I have tried to explain to him that Wi-Fi and internet is the same thing for I don't know for how long. I'm like, you know, he wants to, he wants to get a smart TV, but then when you say, well, what's a smart TV? So is it hooked up to your internet or your Wi-Fi? Both. I mean, I feel like that Abbott and Costello
Right,
thing,
right.
like who's on first? Like that's like we're going around in circles with this conversation. Um, and then, your mom and her telephone, I don't know how this happened because you pressed the button. Like you press something. You press something, her computer and I don't know about anybody else's parents, but our parents are the ones, they're going to figure out a way to do it cheaper. And I'm like
Right,
that too, but some
right.
stuff
They just gonna
I'm
cut
just going to
out.
pay for it. But with
Yeah.
them, so so
They
then
always got a friend.
yeah, she always has a friend. And I'm, like with her computer, which I'm sure that she hit something and somebody is it's some type of um
Spyware.
spyware, yes. Or spy, whatever. So, and I've told her, like, look, go to Best Buy and have them wipe your computer clean. Well, I'm just gonna let Reggie do it. He don't do this, but he know how. Like that's so now, the guy's done whatever he was going to do and is gone. She gave him what, $75 or whatever. But guess what? She's still having the same problem.
Hmm.
Like, so, I mean, it's that. I mean, it's those kinds of things. But the other thing is, even with me dealing with my health issues, I see them aging. So I
Hmm.
know that they really can't do as much in the same way that they did before. They both are relatively healthy,
Hmm.
but at the same time, like, I see them like slowing down,
Yeah.
and, just, you know, they neither one of them are or will admit it, but I don't believe that either of them can hear very well.
Well, I think a lot of this is gender based as well, meaning they will come to you with stuff that they don't come to me with. I also think I
Well,
interact with our parents differently than you do.
yeah, see, here's the thing. Yes, they come to me with everything. I know everything on both sides. I know what their, when they pass, what their wishes are. I'm like, okay, do you have it written down? No, no, no. I'm just telling you. Don't tell me. I need you to write it down. So,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. I mean, it's, they look to me to handle different things or whatever. But when it comes down to me saying, like, okay, you need to do this or X, Y, and Z, that's not going to happen. On where you can say, okay, why'd you do that?
Right.
I, you
Right.
know, when I say it, they're offended. Like when you say it, it's just like, okay. But they put more responsibility as far as their lives on me.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And I
so
think maybe
yeah,
because you're their daughter, and maybe that's what they expect the daughter to do,
I
you
think that
know.
generation believes that daughters take care of their parents more so
Hmm.
than sons, which we know
Yeah.
that's not true.
It's not
Um,
true, nor should it be true.
right.
You know, I have asked at least one of our parents, hey, why don't you just move out here? And they're like, no, no.
No, and because that particular parent has made it clear that they're here because I'm here,
Yeah.
which is kind of daunting because I have plans on like not being, not living in this
That's that
state.
Jimmy
So,
Stewart. That's that Jimmy Stewart right
so,
there.
so how does that work out for me? So
I think because we had children in our 30s, because they're just now getting to their 20s, you know, it seems like this should be our time to do whatever. And that doesn't necessarily feel like it's the case.
right,
I don't necessarily get up every day and like, my life is mine to do this and do that.
right,
But
yes,
I feel like it should be. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of that is probably my own thought processes, whereas my children would probably say, I'm not asking you to do that, or I'm
right,
not asking you. And as they get older, they ask less and less, which is better and better for me.
right,
Um, so I'm assuming at a certain point I will, look into myself and say, oh, wait, I don't have to. When they bought property, my best friend is their realtor. He was like, so now you can stop thinking that they're going to come home because they're not coming home. And I thought, I mean, it probably has taken me about 6 months to say, okay, he's probably right because they don't need to come home. I mean, if something happens, you sell that property and
right.
go on about your business, but you don't need to come back here. And we have an agreement that you can always come home because I want them to know this is always their home. You can always come home, but you got 6 months to get yourself together. Once you, let's say you get divorced or you lose your job or something, 6 months should do it for you.
Yeah, and
Then
I
get back
think
out there and try again.
I do think that the kind of the difference is like not that our parents didn't know that life happens, but like we understand not only that life happens, but like the impact that it can have,
Hmm.
on that person when they, have no feel like they have nowhere to go or like there's no, outlet or whatever. I mean, I'm sure I know, people that ended up living in their cars or just
Jan,
you,
I
you
wasn't
know,
far from it. I mean, there were
well,
I talked
yes,
about my 20s. My 20s were rough, boy.
yeah,
Because remember, our parents were like, you gave up a good job. I don't have nothing else for you.
right,
And I was like, okay, well, let me go make my way here. And it was rough.
yeah,
It was rough. I was thinking about that today again because I don't have electricity. And the last time I didn't have electricity, I was not in this sort of place that I'm in now where I could say, okay, I can make this work for a day or two. So I was living and I had rented a room that from someone. The place didn't have a refrigerator. I had made some tuna casserole. I'm like, this would be good tomorrow. It was not good tomorrow. And I had like food poisoning and all this, and I didn't have insurance.
hmm,
So I just had to, grit it out. And who are you going to call and say, help me? Because I'm, 24 but I've made some bad mistakes here. I really should have thrown that tuna casserole away. And what am I supposed to do? So I've been there. So I don't want my children to have to go through that. That's not how I would want them to live. I mean, I guess some people would say, well, it makes you stronger. But does anybody need to be that strong? Is what I'm asking.
Well, you know what, that's interesting just when you consider, I mean, I think most of us as parents, you would say like, I don't want my kids to be, to have to go through that. But we do have to realize that they are going to go through something.
Mm-hmm.
And how will they be able to handle it if we're always doing stuff for them? I think, a lot about just as a parent, especially now, like, okay, if you take the butterfly out of the cocoon, they won't be able to fly
Mm,
because how they are able to fly is that when they're, busting out of the cocoon, that builds the strength in their wings. Once you cut it open, the wings are there, but they can't fly.
mm-hmm.
So, so I think about that a lot as a parent, like, okay, am I really helping or hurting my child in being able to do all the stuff that she should or could or will develop into by cutting open that
Right,
cocoon
right,
and trying to save her. I think we've seen a lot with how that impacts, how they are on their job, how they deal
right,
with relationships, how they
right,
just deal with, a lot of different situations, which I do think that for us, by the time we were in our 20s, many of us had many kinds of different struggles
right,
that, were helping us to be a lot stronger, a lot more, like, okay, if your boss said something to you one day that you didn't particularly care about, like, you don't necessarily quit your job,
right.
but
Even though
just
I
because that's
did, but
just
yes.
just because that's just one day. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and then I mean, like if you're talking about something that's ongoing, yes, absolutely, you need to get the heck out of
Mm-hmm.
Dodge. But I mean, for the most part, like, everybody's not going to like you. Everybody's not
Right.
going to see your viewpoint. What are you there for? Whatever, what is your situation? And so I just, my concern is really that advocacy part. Like, how do you advocate for yourself?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that does come from you understanding or going through some stuff yourself to
Mm-hmm.
be a really good advocate.
So I'm sure we're going to talk about this over the course of the next few episodes because I'm sure we're going to come back to, being a parent and being a child of aging parents and what all that means. But for now, let's get to our rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, number
So,
one,
number one.
what do you wait? Oh, when do you get time alone? When do you get time just for yourself?
So interesting enough, even though my daughter is back home, I really have a lot of alone time. What I'm really trying to work on now is using that alone time to do something.
Me too.
Like, this weekend there was a jazz fest in Southfield, and I went out to that. And I just went by myself. I didn't call anybody to say, hey, meet me at X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z. Even though I knew that one of my sorority sisters was going to be there. Notice I didn't say line sisters. One of my sorority sisters was going to be there, but I just, and I knew she was going to be working. So you know, I just, got my chair, went out there. Unfortunately, a rainstorm came, so they had to shut it down. But
Oh.
So there's been some other things that like I've been like intentionally saying like, okay, if I don't have anybody to do this for me, like I like the arts, like there's a couple things that are going on that I want to make sure that I see. So, and normally, I'll, see like, okay, who can I get to go with me? Maybe if I buy two tickets, somebody, and then
Yeah,
I'm calling, or I don't want to do, I'm not going to do
yeah.
that. If it's something that I really want to do, artsy wise, I'm going to do it. So I'm just trying to be better at that, using that time that I do have because I do have time. Um, and
So,
for me, the real balance is not even going to be so much the fact that my daughter's home, is that don't not allowing that work time to bleed into what should be my personal time.
and the last question, me too. Also, I'm going to take golf lessons, I think. Just something. As you know, I play pickleball and I took tennis lessons a few years ago, maybe about 2 years ago. I think it's time to go up my game. I was actually getting pretty good.
Well,
Um,
I let me say this: there's this group out there that is uh, they're over 40 years old that does double dutch.
oh, okay.
That has been one of the things that like I'm promising myself, like I've made contact with the person because they're all over the country. There's groups all over the country.
So double Dutch?
Yes, so yes, so in 1 to 2 weeks I'm expecting to be able to say like, hey, I did finally go, but I love what they do. It's a, not only just double dutch, they do hopscotch, hula hooping, but
Oh,
and it's all for, it's for fun, but it's also, for fitness as well.
okay. Okay.
So and everybody is 40 and over.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I got
So
nothing.
that's the end for this episode. Any last words?
No, I just I'm hoping that, what we're, sharing is, there's some like-mindedness. People are feeling like, okay, I'm not by myself
Right.
thinking this way or whatever. Um, and that you're, being either empowered, inspired, or um, you know, feeling some kind of support from what we're, doing.
I would hope, or I would like to add that the sibling who does not live at home, see how they can get more involved, with whatever that may be. It might be paying some bills, it might be getting a car service, it might be coming home more often, having the parent come out to you. See how you can give that sibling or siblings that are still at home, see if they can get a little break from time to time.
Yeah, that is helpful actually.
Yeah.
All of that.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jen. I'll see you
Okay.
later.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.